Thank you for the introduction. So I sit on the litigation subcommittee of the board versus the non-litigation. So all of the questions that we handle are the litigation sourced questions. And so I'm going to review two questions that we just recently reviewed and got approved. The first question is, if you can go to the first question.
I believe I'm on it.
Yeah. Is a calculation engagement acceptable alternative to a valuation engagement in a litigation setting, regardless of jurisdiction? I would say calculation engagement questions are probably the most common calculation type of questions that we get. And when are they appropriate? When are they not appropriate? So in our answer, it's not always, and it depends. And this is great that, Dave Miles and Kim Travers were ahead of me. So it's a great introduction here. So generally an evaluation engagement is preferred over a calc engagement. So consequently, a calc engagement doesn't have would not provide the trier of fact with information such as sufficient evidence, facts, and supporting information. Like Dave Miles stated, there's a number of different avenues you can go down when performing evaluation that are not disclosed in a typical calculation engagement. And however, there may be certain circumstances where calc may be appropriate. And as Kim mentioned, typically in a shareholder agreement where it gets called into question is you have to go through and perform a evaluation. Many times it's just prepare a calc, keep the costs down, and all of a sudden, and you're required to go to mediation if you don't agree, and then all of a sudden it goes into litigation. So in those type of settings, it may be appropriate to do a calc just as a benchmark to open up negotiations. But as mentioned in this most recent court case, I mean, these things are subject to interpretation. So not always. A calculation engagement is, you should be scared enough based upon what you've heard in Kim's presentation. So in the interpretation, which is the next slide. So it states that a member must always include scope limitations when performing which affect the level of reliance on the information. In a litigation setting, this will include consideration of all relevant statutes and precedents governing how estimates of value may be determined. As stated in Kim's, is it with discounts? Is it without discounts? And typically in a calc engagement, you would just prepare it, at full value. So there's a number of different, how you arrive at those estimates of value may be determined, disclosed, and adduced. So as I stated, there are a number of FAQs in this area, so review the other relevant FAQs if you do have any other questions regarding a calculation engagement. But generally, you may want to stay away from those when you're going into litigation. The second question is, next slide. May a member perform a business valuation review engagement in a litigation setting? Yes, it may be. A review engagement may be performed, and similar to question number one, you have to go. It cannot conflict with the applicable jurisdiction requirements, statutes, and judicial precedents. It is minority discounts allowed in a shareholder buyout. Some allow, some states don't allow it. So, and then the interpretation, as in the case for all review engagements, a member must adhere to the applicable NACFA professional standards. So. So that summarizes the two questions that I wanted to cover that deal with in the litigation setting, utilization of calculation engagements and review engagements.